Welcome to Whispered Stories. Today, we're diving into one of the most transformative periods in history, World War I. Imagine a world on the brink of modernity, caught in a web of alliances, and about to be plunged into chaos. Let's travel back in time and uncover the events that forever changed the course of history. It all started with a tense atmosphere in Europe. Picture a continent filled with powerful empires, all vying for dominance. Countries were building up their armies and navies, driven by a mix of national pride and the desire for more territory. Alliances were formed, promising mutual defense. It was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Then, on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, that spark ignited. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife Sophie were assassinated by a young nationalist. This single act set off a chain reaction. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and soon, countries all over Europe were dragged into the conflict through their alliances. Europe was split into two major camps. On one side, you had the Allies, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom. On the other, the Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. These alliances were like a tightrope, and the assassination tipped everyone over the edge into war. In September 1914, the First Battle of the Marne was a pivotal moment. German forces were advancing towards Paris, and it seemed like they might capture the French capital. But the French and British forces launched a daring counterattack along the Marne River. In a dramatic turnaround, the Allies pushed the Germans back, ending their hopes for a quick victory and setting the stage for years of trench warfare. The war quickly turned into a brutal stalemate, especially on the Western Front. Imagine living in a trench, mud everywhere, the constant sound of artillery, and the ever-present threat of an enemy attack. Battles like the Somme and Verdun saw unimaginable carnage, with thousands of soldiers losing their lives for just a few feet of ground. Next, we move to the Gallipoli Campaign of 1915. The Allies aimed to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war by securing the Dardanelles Strait and opening a sea route to Russia. It was a bold plan, but it turned into a disaster. The troops, including many from Australia and New Zealand, faced fierce resistance and brutal conditions. After months of fighting and heavy casualties, the Allies were forced to withdraw, achieving none of their objectives. One of the largest naval battles in history took place in 1916, the Battle of Jutland. The British Royal Navy clashed with the German High Seas Fleet in the North Sea. Both sides claimed victory. The British maintained naval dominance, but the Germans inflicted significant damage. Despite the scale of the battle, it ended in a strategic stalemate, with neither side achieving a decisive victory. In 1917, the landscape of the war shifted dramatically. The United States, after years of staying out, joined the Allies. American soldiers brought fresh energy and resources to the weary European fronts. This influx of new troops and material was a game-changer, tipping the scales in favor of the Allies. World War I also saw the advent of new, terrifying technologies. Tanks lumbered across the battlefield for the first time, planes fought in the skies, and chemical weapons like mustard gas added a horrific new dimension to warfare. The world had never seen anything like it before. Back home, life was changing too. Civilians were essential to the war effort, working in factories to produce weapons and supplies. Governments introduced rationing, and propaganda was everywhere, urging people to support the war. The entire society was mobilized for the fight. By November 11, 1918, the war finally came to an end. Several factors contributed to the conclusion of this devastating conflict. The Central Powers were exhausted and demoralized, suffering from resource shortages and internal unrest. The decisive entry of the United States into the war provided the Allies with fresh troops and resources, tipping the balance. The 100 Days Offensive, a series of rapid Allied victories, broke through German defenses and forced them to retreat. Finally, facing the inevitability of defeat, Germany sought an armistice, and the guns fell silent on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The impact of World War I was immense. Empires fell, new nations emerged, and the world map was redrawn. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing the seeds of future conflict. The League of Nations was created in the hope of preventing such a catastrophe from happening again.